Hey folks, this is Abel James, and thanks so much for joining us on the Fat Burning Man Show, where we talk about real food and real results. Are you ready for a boost in your confidence? Don't underestimate the power and importance of morale right now. In the age of internet memes, celebrity gossip, social media, clickbait articles, and online haters, it's easy to get pulled into that vortex of negativity. Trust me, we get plenty of hate, especially these days, but you gotta keep going. So how can we ditch those bad vibes and get the confidence we need to take back control of our lives? To help us out, today we're here with Elle Russ, the best-selling author, a TV and film writer, comedian, and host of the popular Primal Blueprint podcast. But before we get there, here's a recent comment I got on an episode of the Fat Burning Man Show from Riddle Rhymes. He says, "Abel, you rock, my brother. I followed your work for years. Keep preaching the truth about real food. I adopted a primal lifestyle 8 years ago. I am a 61-year-old Renaissance fair actor. I can sing, dance, and perform spontaneous poetry for 8 hours in 100-degree heat while dressed in heavy period costume. My 20-year-old castmates are astonished. I have no peer on the field of fun. Keep setting people free, my friend." Hey, Riddle Rhymes, thank you for those kind words. I would love to hear you recite poetry in that 100-degree. And I wonder if I saw you in Texas at some point. I love Renaissance fairs and festivals. I love the music. The drinks can be quite fun. The food as well. Some of the channels that we follow and watch are actually some of the Renaissance old school cooking centuries ago and that sort of thing. I think it's fascinating. I think this is such a lost art. And what people are doing as Renaissance fair actors and performers, you guys are really my heroes. I think you're setting people free. So I very much appreciate you getting in touch. And also the fact that you have such endurance. I'll just comment on that because for me as well, I noticed that when I started to transition to a cleaner way of eating that was more based on traditional fats instead of carbs, grains, vegetable oils, and low-fat products, or whatever the heck else, Gatorade, you're supposed to have to perform better or be healthy. When I transitioned, I noticed as well that I could suddenly stand there and perform and sing, do music, or do things like this. Now, I haven't eaten yet today, and I'm not done recording. I still have a lot more to do. But you know what? I feel good, and I like the energy that comes from fasting once your body transitions into that mode. So that's wonderful. And you also notice that you can adapt to really cold weather. I've played guitar on roof decks and in outdoor gigs and stuff like that when I couldn't feel my fingers, but you can still keep going. And then the heat, oh man, I remember playing a show out in Texas during the sundown. It was reflecting off of a lake as the sun was also shining in my eyes. I sweat through my shirt, my dress shirt, by the way, at a private function. Sweat all the way through that, and then it got so hot that the guitar literally stopped working. The pickup just cut out. So if your body can keep going longer than the electronics, that's a very good sign. So all of you who are listening, wondering what all of this is about, whether you're a performer, a creator, a musician, entrepreneur, or anyone else, you can get more energy. You can make sure that you optimize and balance your body in the way that it works. And when you get out of your own way and you fuel clean, and you get all the nutrients that you need, and you start to heal some of these things that have been broken and damaged in your body, you'd be amazed by what you're capable of. So if you'd like to get in touch, and also I'll mention now I'm doing oh geez, there's a fly attacking me now. I'm doing some one-on-one virtual coaching over on our new channel on Patreon and through the tip jar. So go on fatburningman.com/tip jar or go on Patreon and look for Abel James. You can join our group coaching club or even get one-on-one coaching with me for a limited time. And also, if you're a creator, a small business, or an entrepreneur, I'm also doing just a handful of coaching sessions for you folks as well, because I know there are so many of us who really need help transitioning online or adapting our business to these trying times. So if you'd like to get in touch, then go to fatburningman.com/ Tip Jar, and you'll find our coaching, our coffee club, and so much more. And then one more quick announcement before we get to this show here. We've got 2 new products with some more to come from Wild Superfoods. So if you're in the US, then be sure to check out Adrenal Stack. This is one that I've been taking for years. So if you're looking for a reliable and quality, clean source of vitamin C, B vitamins, ginseng, ashwagandha, rhodiola, licorice, and much more, then check out Adrenal Stack. As I said, I've been taking this for years, especially when I'm on the road or when I'm going through a lot of recording or a lot of writing, a lot of stressful times. Man, I like having this one around. I hope you do too. We've got another one called Collagen Cocoa. It tastes so good that you can actually use it as a replacement in some of our recipes for chocolate powder, for cocoa powder. Collagen Cocoa at wildsuperfoods.com. Once again, it's only available in the States, but I'll tell you, if you're looking for a high quality source of nutraceuticals, supplements, botanicals, that sort of thing, the longer I do this, really the more I believe in the power of these tools to heal us. So if you are international and you can't buy Wild Superfoods from us, if you would like to join our group coaching or one-on-one coaching with me, I'd be more than happy to help you pick out whatever country you're in, a high quality source of nutrients, whether they're nutraceuticals and supplements or other food sources. So keep that in mind too, because I know a lot of people international have tried to order, and I'm sorry, it's just complicated, especially these days, selling internationally. But I'm more than happy to help. And what you want to look for is not the cheapest supplements out there. You want valuable supplements. You want to make sure that they're clean, that they are what they say they are, and that you trust your source. It's so important. There's so many scams out there, and I wish there weren't, but you really have to have your shields up and use some self-defense when you go about all of this. So we're here to help, and be sure to get in touch. So Mega Omegas, Probiotic Spheres, Vitamin D Stack, Future Greens, Collagen Cocoa, Adrenal Stack, with a few more to come. Go to wildsuperfoods.com. We can't wait to hear what you think. And then one last thing, since Elle is into improv and has been writing for many years, I thought that those of you out there who are also performers and creators, or you're into comedy and satire, might appreciate my new audiobook and book called Designer Babies Still Get Scabies. It's now a #1 international bestseller, and I'm giving it away when you sign up for our Patreon page. So look up Abel James on Patreon, or once again, go to fatburningman.com/tipjar, and you can download it on the post right away when you sign up. And you can do it for as little as a few bucks a month. And I really appreciate you folks helping us keeping this going. The costs and the overhead are more than you might imagine to keep our team going, to keep all of the hosting costs and that sort of thing, as many of us out there, are being squeezed. And trust me, if you don't have money to spend, please do not, especially not on us. There's plenty of stuff for free. Go to fatburningman.com for that. But if you are in the wonderful position where you have a safe place to sleep, you're warm and comfortable, and you can get by all right, then we all need to help support each other right now. And I really appreciate all of you connecting. It's been so wonderful to connect with people all over the world in the past few weeks and months, in spite of this kind of horrible situation that so many of us find ourselves in. So if you're looking to support the little guy out there, you can either sign up for our Patreon channel, or you can also get the book at designerbabiesbook.com, or look up Designer Babies Still Get Scabies wherever books are sold online, not in bookstores, because who knows if they even exist anymore. But we love you, bookstores. We hope you're doing all right. Okay, so on to this show with Elle Russ. We're chatting about how to ditch jealousy and bad vibes, why our confidence is under attack and what to do about it. This one's really important. How to speak up and say no, how comedy helps us find the edges, and tons more. Let's go hang out with Elle. All right, folks, returning to the show, Elle Russ is the best-selling author of The Paleothyroid Solution, a TV and film writer, host of the popular Primal Blueprint podcast, and fun fact, her new book about confidence is so edgy that I can't even officially read the title on this show. So how's it going, Elle?
It's going great. Thanks for having me.
say the confidence title in the way that you just said it before we started
Sure.
recording?
All right. Well, you can see it behind me, but it's confident as FU asterisk K. So we all know what that means, but we'll just refer
Boom.
to it as confident as F from now on.
I had so much fun reading through this book. As I was saying before we started recording, I don't often get to read books that feel new, that are about topics that aren't usually talked about as specific as confidence and self-esteem. And the way that it shows up in your book is even cooler. So let's start right there. It seems like our confidence is under attack. But why did you decide to write this book now?
Well, throughout my life, and I'm sure this is true for people listening, you start to see a theme of people who come to you for certain things and what you're good at. And so throughout my life, people would continually come to me for either a cheerleading pep talk for confidence and self-esteem, or because they needed to stand up and declare their worth in a job interview, to get a raise. Even people within our company over the years have been like, I got to call Mark for a raise. What do I do? Not that he's a scary guy, but it's just, some people have they're afraid to speak up. And so I noticed this over time, that this is what people were coming to me for, even if it was like, I've got to stand up to this bully, or, what do I do in this situation? And essentially, people are drawn to me because of that. And that might sound kind of cocky, but it's really not the case, because confident people are not cocky and are not braggadocious and all of that. But it's just one of those things where this is a skill of mine. However, that being said, highly confident people have pitfalls. And one of them is, the inability to be vulnerable. We don't want to appear as weak in any way. So showing any kind of human emotion is like a no-no for, for the uncoached, confident people out there. So this book is for people who are seeking to gain confidence and self-esteem, but also for highly confident people who kind of need to refine and sort of maybe tone up their confidence, because other pitfalls are such, like, for example, when you're really confident, you're often outspoken. So you can often lack some diplomacy, meaning speaking before we think, where other people who might be lacking some confidence in certain areas, they actually have a lot that we can learn from. And that is, they're more diplomatic. They're able to receive. They're okay with other people taking control. So highly confident people have some pitfalls, and those people are not weaker than us. They are complementary to us if we see that. So that's what I learned over time too. And I mean, you read the book and there's so much to this, but I was really highly confident in a lot of arenas, but I got hit a couple of times in life, and I had to really clean up a lot of stuff to become confident as F. And what I mean by that is inside and outside, because Abel, there are people that can speak in front of 50,000 people and appear extremely confident, yet they can't speak up in their relationships or friendships or whatever it is. And that's not confidence. That's just performance confidence. And anybody can gain the kind of performance confidence that you and I have. And that's not what I'm promoting. I mean, if you'd like to get there, great, but that's something that can be learned and trained and coached over time.
Yeah.
So it's more important really to have it on the inside, and that's what I mean. It's all encompassing, confident as F, just,
What's the difference between confidence and cocky?
Well, here's the thing. So, being proud of oneself is a wonderful attribute. However, when you see those people and you're at a party or something, we all know the person, the dude or the girl that's kind of bragging, trying to impress people. That's not confidence. That's real insecurity. If you feel like you have to tell people how much you're worth and that they should like you for A, B, C, or D, then you really care a lot about what other people think of you. That's not confidence. It's not true confidence. So we notice that. We don't like it when we see it. And I just see that as insecurity. Sometimes the loudest person in the room is the most insecure person in the room, often. And sometimes the quietest person in the room is the most confident. So, this is not about, yes, I believe you should have inward and outward confidence. You're going to have to at some point speak up, meaning outward confidence to get what you want in life. But this is not about, look, you could be a stay-at-home mom. You're still going to need confidence, because you're going to have to stand up to some kids, be of a mother at the PTA meeting or whatever it is. You have to maybe protect your children. You're still going to have confidence. And it really affects every area of our life, from the bedroom to the boardroom. You're never going to get nowhere without speaking up and declaring what you want and moving forward in life and propelling yourself. So that's why I was like, these are the tools to really own it, get into the self-examination arena, and let's get good with this and scrape off the barnacles of life and let's move forward. Because otherwise, there's things in life you're sitting around going, God, I wish I would have said that. There's a lot of regrets. There's a lot of, well, I could, but I'm afraid to. And so then you never do. And so you're back to where you were before you even considered asking. And that's not going to get you anywhere.
And biting your tongue and staying silent in a lot of instances as it's interpreted as being nice, but maybe not, right?
Yeah, not at all. So, look, there are times when you have to edit yourself. So, confidence is really being authentic with yourself and authentic with others. And that's why people really are drawn to it. That's why it's attractive because people are out there that are authentic, that are speaking the truth. They don't care what other people think, and they're telling the truth. People love this. Not only that, I mean, confident people are reliable, and lots of other areas why we're drawn to it. But at the end of the day, if you are what Dr. Glover calls a people pleaser, or that's just a general term, but he wrote a book called No More Mr. Nice Guy, and I put an excerpt in my book because it's very important. So
I love that.
here's the example. It's like, let's say you have a friend who's, like, let's say they worked at the same company for 10 years, but they're always like, they always work in the holidays. They never get the right days off, and people are like, oh, poor Abel. His problem is he's just too nice. No, he's not too nice. He's a liar. People pleasing is being a liar. And what happens and what leads to this is, so people pleasing is you're afraid to tell someone what you really think because you're afraid of what they might think or how they might view you. And this could go in any kind of relationships. You could just be going along with what anyone else says. The thing is that at the end of the day, you're not being authentic, you're lying. And what that does is leads to some covert contracts, some passive aggressive behavior. And, then you're in the background silently resenting because you never spoke up. And so if you know someone, they're like, oh, they're too nice. No, they're probably not too nice. They might be nice. They might be nice people, but it's really being a liar. And that's really what it comes down to, because it's not telling the truth. Now, there are times when lying is appropriate. Let's be real. If I'm at your grandmother's house for Thanksgiving and she's wearing an ugly sweater and asks me what I think of it, I'm going to tell her it's awesome. Okay. Let people have some wins. You got to choose confident people choose battles wisely. Hey, if I'm at someone's house, right, and someone's a 90-year-old grandfather says a racial slur. Hey, maybe that's not my place to teach about tolerance at that point. Well, we let that go. Let the family deal with it. So it's not about choosing every battle and speaking up at every turn, but it is about generally moving through the world, being confident. And what does that really mean? Because inside self-esteem, inside confidence, it really means that you get to a point where you generally have a feeling that you're going to prevail.
Yeah. So you're willing to take that risk. Whereas being passive, you feel like there's a safety in that, but as you said, it turns into passive aggressiveness. You're not winning. And there's also
passive aggressiveness is actually one of my least favorite qualities in the world, because here's what happens. The person who's passive aggressive perceives a threat from someone else that usually is not the case. And then they act on it in a very passive aggressive way. Usually the way in which they act is some way to subvert the other person or hoping that the other person fails. And I talk about this a lot in my book. Okay. So when, and they do secret moves, like passive aggressive person might, intentionally leave stuff in the kitchen in the sink because they know it bothers you and they're like, I'm going to get them. Well, you know what? That's just going to backfire on you. It's no way to live in life. And it's doing a lot of testing with people. And, you just got to be straight up. Life is better this way, Abel. It is so much better this way. And I'm often admired for it. And the thing is that, one of the best compliments I can receive is when someone's like, hey, look, let me ask your opinion because I know you're not going to BS me. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, great. Yes, I would love that. That's so much better than walking around on eggshells around me, never knowing if I'm really truthful or am I just saying things to be nice. People come to me because they know they're going to get the truth, and again, there's diplomacy involved in this, there's editing, but at the end of the day, the general notion of that. Yeah.
It's a slippery slope, but I think one of the things that came up for me anyway in the book is that you definitely never have it nailed, and you're never there. And there are always things that come up where, in Mark Sisson's new book, he talks about unwinding some of his businesses that got ahead of him, and he should have quit before, when he knew he should. He knew it, but he kept going, and it was kind of an ego-based behavior. And I think we can all be more honest about that, whether we're biting our tongues or maybe being a little bit too outwardly overcompensating for not having confidence by trying to seem confident. Another really interesting point that you brought up, though, is the difference between performance confidence and actual confidence, because I think people who haven't lived their life backstage as we kind of have, right, might not might not know that distinction, but a lot of the people who are out there with the lights on them, with thousands, millions of people who are listening, are the most crippled by insecurities in a lot of cases. Maybe you can just talk to that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, they're confident on the outside seemingly, but they're messy on the inside. So here's the thing. In assessing another person and whether they're truly confident, you go to the interpersonal interaction versus what they do in the world. Because here's the thing, you can own your own law firm and be a badass. I talk about an example of John in the book, an anesthesiologist, extreme confidence in his abilities, a real badass job, right? Like, I mean, you have to bring people back from, surgery. And if you don't, they're dead. So that's a high stakes thing. Extremely confident. He's also a spear fisherman, extremely confident sport. You're wrangling 150-pound sea creatures 5 miles out into the ocean. I mean, it's like a 3,000 an hour burning calorie endeavor. It's extremely frightening, and you have to hold your breath for 5 minutes. Like, you need a lot of confidence for that. So this guy, John, has confidence in his abilities about things. And he's also good looking and fit, totally confident in those arenas. But he can't talk to his neighbor about something really minor, and he can't speak up in relationships. You know what I mean? So that's not a good life either. And I would say that it counts more to have it on the inside. And by the way, this again is about sometimes people who are less outwardly confident like us get a little bit offended or defensive when people say confidence because they think it's the outward. But that's not really true. One of my best friends in the world, he's not the loudest guy in the room. He'd be at a party. Let's say he's standing in the corner alone. There might be some people that are like, oh, that poor guy, he's all alone in the corner. No, not poor guy. He's totally confident. He's comfortable in himself. He's not there to impress people. He doesn't care if he talks to people. And that's how I am too. I walk into every room like I own it. That sounds a little cocky, but let me unpack that. I don't care if one person in that room knows my resume, knows what I do, is impressed by me. I don't even care if they have a conversation with me. I'm just open to observe. I'm open to like possibly learning about people. I'm just comfortable in my own skin and myself wherever I go. I wish that upon everybody. That's the goal. And that doesn't mean you have to be an extrovert.
Yeah. Yeah. And the whole, I kind of take issue with the introvert extrovert thing, because I've taken that test many times and I fall on both sides like every time.
Yeah.
And I think when we try to say, like, for me, I was a very shy child. And in your book, you bring up, and obviously this isn't true for children, I don't think, but shyness kind of as narcissism in the form of a quote. And that link, I think, is so important, because being that nice guy who's never going to speak up and say the kind thing, which would be appropriate, which would lead to truth and good behavior, you would rather bite your tongue about something stupid and think that your neighbor is going to be mean to you and not like you ever again because you like asked this one request of them, right? But that's a narcissistic behavior. You don't have any interaction with this person, and your only reason for your behavior or lack of behavior is because you think that he won't like you because you do something or say something or whatever. And that's inherently narcissistic. Maybe you can dig into that a little more too.
Yeah, it's inherently, it's a little bit like self-aggrandizing. And that people, like really so many people care. Well, here's the thing. So we all care what people think of us to some degree. We want people to like our books and, listen to our podcast. Sure. But I guarantee, at least for myself, I'm not checking like, what are the downloads numbers every week? Like, oh my God, do people like looking at comments? I'm just putting out the content and I'm like, hey, like it or not, whatever, it's all good. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm kind of releasing what other people think, although yes, I hope they like it. But listen, you can't win. There's going to be people out there who don't. There was someone who contacted me and was very offended by the title of my book. All right, well, you know what? Sorry to hear that. Don't read it then. Don't follow me. So, you're going to have those people. Shyness is completely overcomable. I have seen the worst case scenario with a person who couldn't even talk to anyone, not even like a barista at Starbucks. Okay. So if you're at ground zero with confidence where you're so debilitatingly shy, then the move might be to get a social coach who can start to help force you to make some moves, take you to a mall, get you to talk to the people that work there, because often they're going to be very friendly. So just on the note of shyness, I want to say I have seen a complete 180. I have I know someone who had to go through that, and at this day, you would never know that they were ever shy. It's the most shocking thing. Do they still have some moments that they go through where they get that feeling inside? Yeah, but then they take their coaching, they go through it, they muster through the uncomfortability. And that's the key to confidence, because speaking up for the first time about anything is uncomfortable. It's nerve-wracking. Your heart rate's up. The nerves are there. Doesn't feel good. Neither does performing for the first time at all. It's shaky. You're like running to the bathroom to poop your brains out 20 minutes before the show. I mean, this happens at first when people start performing. It's totally natural, but you walk through it anyway. You do it anyway. So if you need someone to guide you there and you're at ground zero, it's totally possible. So if you're out there and you've been debilitatingly shy, you might want to do that. Like when I walk into a room, let's say, and I say, I feel like I own the place, and I told you how I felt about that. When you walk into a room and you're looking to impress and all that, it's very all you, isn't it? Oh, gross. It's all on you. It's all about what you think and again, if you just get rid of yourself and put yourself like, let's see who's out there. What can I learn? Things that are outside of oneself versus putting it internally. It's also just a state of perpetual victimhood. That you continually setting yourself in, and until you get out of it. And every time somebody I've coached has taken that first step to speak up, even in a small way, sometimes they'll call me and they'll be crying afterwards because it was tough and it was emotional. But on the other end of that, like the pride and the feeling, you can just tell how good they feel because they finally spoke up, or they finally declared the worth. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And there's a catharsis in that, don't you think?
In speaking up, you mean? Yeah, because here's the thing, like, let's talk about ancestral health. First of all, back in ancestral days, first of all, people, and Mark wrote about this in Primal Connection, no one sat around feeling sorry for themselves, because you'd be dead. Like you got to pick up and move on,
right,
and find the solution. It's a forward thinking. We do what I call pasturbating, right? You know what I mean? We're simmering in the past and our victimhood and our childhood stories, all the parental garbage. That's not really primal. And also in general, you needed to be valued by a tribe. We still do. We need to feel valued by at least one person. And I don't care if that's the guy that works at 7-Eleven down the street or a friend, you need somebody. And back in the day, we needed to feel valued by our tribe. So it's important. We want people to like us. This is the connection between us. But I'm saying that connection is so much better when it's transparent and authentic and honest. And that's why I really try to only hang out with confident as F people, because they're straightforward. I mean, Mark Sisson's very like this. A lot of people in our industry are very like this, just no BS, straight shooters. They're not going to lie to you. And I prefer that communication. I don't want to dance around with moody people. Are you okay? Da, 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 da. It's just, it's such a, it's not good vibes. It never feels good. And that's how you know. No one ever feels good walking around eggshells on someone ever. Wouldn't you just rather have someone come out and say it? You know what I mean? So back to the victimhood, we didn't have a lot of time back in the day to simmer in the past or simmer in like how this situation felt. We propelled ourselves to move out of it. So yeah. I'm kind of suggesting like, let's get back to the original roots on this. And again, the other thing that bothers me too that I write in the book is like, I'm really tired. I love spiritual teachers. I read a lot of self-help books. I love all this stuff. However, tired of people blaming the ego and saying it's absolutely, completely terrible. And we should, we're not living on a hippie commune, okay? People are going to come at you in this life. You know what I mean? It's not like some mutual arrangement between 20 people and we're all going to act sweet to each other. So when people, some spiritual teachers would say like, oh, well, the whole point is just to get to the point where you're unmoved and unfazed by everything. I'm like, is that really primal? I'm still in this meat suit. We have an ego for a reason. You'd be in a psycho prison if you didn't have an ego. We need it to distinguish between the subconscious and the conscious. Yeah. So while it's a cause of a lot of problems and it needs to be checked, I'm also still for indulging it. Part of that indulging it is speaking up. And sometimes that means it has to be in a tone that isn't, quote, spiritual. You know what I mean? Like, for example, someone asked me yesterday, I didn't put it in the book, but I had a scenario on a project that was a project that was, mostly mine, and someone had some input in it. And they kept going back and forth. And I said, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. They kept coming back. And it just like was unrelenting. Finally, and like, I love this person. We have a great relationship. But at the end of the day, I finally had to go, hey, enough's enough. That's it. I'm not doing it. This is the end of the discussion. That's it. We're done. Now, that sounds really harsh, but it escalated to that point. I tried all the diplomacy up. Sometimes you have to be firm. Now, Some people would be like, oh, well, you could have approached that with like, hey, no, because sometimes you need to be really ultra, again, using my confidence as dominance a little bit in that scenario, but not in a mean spirited way to take someone down or be a mean girl, just to be like, hey, we're done. Enough. Hey, we talk to kids like that. That's what happens, right? You know, like, hey, enough. Put the phone down, right? Enough's enough. So, I I bring this up, which is I rarely have because I speak up in life. I rarely get challenged on it. I'm not patronized often. I'm not bullied often. But there has been like 3 situations in the past 5 years where some random chick at my gym in like the steam room or sauna will come at me like a mean girl, and they always regret it because they picked on the wrong they picked the wrong person. Now, some people would say, well, why didn't you just like let that go? Why did you come at them or call them on that? Because I would have walked away, again, speaking up in that scenario, and in whatever the scenario is, be like, hey, you're not gonna talk to me like that, or whatever it is. That fuels my confidence. I still, to this day, when I think about those incidents, oh my God, love it. Patting myself on the back. Because again, think about it, in ancestral times, like you're standing up, like, no, you're not coming over here, right? You know, you have to protect yourself and the tribe. Like nobody was sitting there being sweet and loving. And I'm not saying that that's not the way to be. It's not like, hey, go out and be a jerk. Confidence is not about that. But it's also not about completely being unaffected by things and letting everything go. Because I think when you speak up for yourself, now I can let more things go because I speak up all the time and I don't have this issue. But when you don't, it's like, well, how do you determine that? Well, you got to choose your battles wisely. So for example, if I'm in the parking lot and I'm just driving and someone's going the other way and they flip me off, well, you know what, whatever. But if you come at me directly in my face at my gym in the sauna, you're going to get a mouthful of words from me. And and every time they've been shocked because again, when you bully a bully, they usually acquiesce. They shut up. They're shocked. Sometimes you need to do that. Now, I don't care if that person learned a lesson that day, but they certainly learned it with me. And it's not going to happen again. And secondly, maybe they did learn a lesson in being a little bit careful as to the strangers they decide to come at with this stuff, you know, and every time that has happened, which is rare, it feels great that I spoke up and defended myself. And again, not like trying to tell them I'm a great person, but by being like, hey, what you just did, unacceptable, not taking it. You chose the wrong chick on the wrong day, girl. Don't even. I mean, I will, you know, I went off, felt great. It feels yucky inside in that moment, but afterwards, oh my gosh, it's so empowering. It fueled my confidence even more. So it's not about like looking to you know, start crap with people or using your confidence as dominance, but sometimes you have to, and sometimes that fuels confidence. And it's important. It's important to do it instead of just let it go, you know? So for example, let's say you keep getting patronized or bullied by some, you know, like supervisor or something like that. So you could just quit and go away or accept it. It's going to keep digging into you every time they do it, or you can call it out. Now, it might be uncomfortable. Maybe you'll get fired. Who knows? You got to prepare for these things. But at the end of the day, I guarantee you, because every time it happens, that person who normally doesn't speak up is so fueled with this level of self-esteem because they chose them. They chose to not be mentally abused and patronized and spoken down to by somebody. That's really important. And there's adult bullying going on again, like at my gym. I don't know like what's happened 5 years, 3 times. Okay, I hope it doesn't happen again. But if it does, boy, I'm ready. So I just, it's really important to adopt these tenets and to see that the ego can be really unchecked and terrible, but it also can really fuel us in a positive way. And I'm about indulging that ego occasionally. You know, indulge it. If someone's speaking down to you in a really crazy way, you might have to go, hey, don't speak to me in that tone again. And or I'm hanging up. That's forceful. That's actually going to get the message across. That's going to feel good and fuel confidence versus not doing anything about it or even soft-spokenly say something about it. Now, everyone's different. Everyone's not like downtown Chicago. Me, I'm from downtown Chicago. We're like ready. We're on the, we're on alert. Growing up in the city, we're ready to pounce. But and that's what they do. Is confident people are nice. You know, I may be a forceful presence, but you know me. Everyone knows me. I'm really nice. I'm a super connector. I love babies and dogs. I mean, I'm a sappy. I cry at stupid Hallmark movies. Like I'm still that person. But in my alpha work life and with what I do, I am a forceful presence. But people are usually drawn to that because they want it, and they want it for a reason. And the reason is because they know they're probably not going to get effed with, and they're going to be admired in whatever arena they're in. And that's really the goal, because Abel, I used to hire people for a living back in the day. I would rather hire a confident person who had less skills. And most employers do feel that way, because confident people are confident in their ability to do a thing, whether they know it or not. Usually, if they have some modicum of confidence. So even if they don't know the skill, they'll learn it. They'll be proactive. They'll also be on time. Employers would rather hire that type of personality than someone who is actually skilled in the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And you talking about that, I can feel my heart beating faster, because standing up for yourself and all of that. Like I'm pretty well known for keeping the peace. I speak my mind, but for the most part, I really do try to find our connections and the things that we agree about, whether you're a carnivore or vegan or anything in between. Like let's agree that we're all health nuts here. But when I was doing the Wild Diet, shopping it around to different publishers and all that, there was this one, I'm not going to say any names, but there was this one particular meeting where they invited me, and they were very interested in the book. And it was all these female executives. And they're just like, Abel, how does it feel that people only listen to you because you're a good looking man? And I'm like, shake it if you got it, baby. And I'm so glad that I said that instead of not, you know what I mean? Instead of just being like, what? And cowering to that, because that is so poor. That is so weak. That is so nasty. Such sexist adult bullying like that from professional people, when hundreds of thousands of dollars are at stake in real business circumstances. That is unacceptable. And I think if you do bite your tongue in an instance like that, you're going to regret it forever. And also, those people will get away with it, and they'll do it again to somebody else, right? And so what you're really doing there, even if it falls flat, nobody laughs and they hate you forever, they're not going to try that on the next person they think who is only listened to because they're some sort of good looking face or something like that. So yeah.
I'm so glad you brought that up. And here's the thing, to this day, you still feel proud and good about it. Thinking about it even fuels your self-esteem.
Yeah.
Still,
and they didn't get
day.
that deal. They're the ones who lost the deal because of that, I should mention.
And also too, usually, again, when you bully a bully of any kind, immediate respect. They immediately respect you because they're not expecting it. Also too, if you don't want to get bullied, well, you better get some confidence, because bullies prey on that vibration.
Yeah.
They seek it out, and they know you're going to be a good victim. I have I mentioned it in the book, and this is not about a crappy comment, but Mark Sisson is such a pro-woman guy. He let me host his podcast. He started Primal Kitchen with a 32-year-old, woman. He's so pro-women. But when we were talking about doing the paleo thyroid solution, and, we're just kind of brainstorming it in his house. And he said, well, what if you got like a doctor, right, to write the book with you, but it'll be written by both of you on the cover, but, they're not going to get any money, and you're going to really write it, but just to kind of bring street credit to it, which, by the way, that's a suggestion most publishers would make when you're writing a medical type of book.
I got that recommendation.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Immediately, this is what came out of my mouth. Verbatim. I said, Mark, I'm a female writer. Do you know how many glass ceilings had to break to get here? I'm not sharing credit with some dude who's a doctor who didn't write the book. I'm just not doing it. And without hesitation, he went, oh, yeah, totally get it. Like, he just forgot in a second. He didn't think about that. He's not thinking about male, female. He's not a female writer, right? And the conversation is over. We moved on. There was no bad vibes. There was just a quick thing, as if I said it to you, like, hey, man, no. And he was like, all right, cool. Because he's confident as F too. And that's another reason to want to hang out with these people as well, because you can do something like that. No one takes it personally. It doesn't become an argument. He just probably hadn't thought about it, right? He's a male and he just didn't think that way. And so then he's like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay, cool. And then moving on. That's it.
But you didn't attack him. It's okay to disagree, right?
It's okay to disagree. And what if I didn't say anything though, Abel?
Right.
I'd be regretting it because some guy got credit or someone else got credit where they actually didn't. Now, I love the doctor on my book. He's my doctor. He contributed greatly to it. Of course, but I wrote it. And so, I would be simmering in regret forever because I was too afraid of a publisher who had his book in my hands. Oh, well, if I don't agree with everything Mark wants, then no, it was more like, hey, this is a conversation. It didn't feel right to feel that was going to be how the book was going to be laid out. So I had to go, no, I can't do it.
Yeah.
I can put him on the cover. We can denote it in another way, right? Where it does say on the paleothyroid, just the in-depth commentary by, integrative physician Gary Forsman. Great, perfect. That was enough credit for what I was willing to do there. So, and as well as a female writer, you have to understand too, especially when I was in comedy, I'd had to have this discussion a couple times because, and I didn't put this in the book, but you'd be writing with sketches with male comedy writers. There's more males than there are females, although now it's probably more even. But when I was doing it, it was still, you were one of the only chicks in the group kind of thing. And I looked at this sketch that we wrote up with this guy, and I said to him, I go, hey, dude, you gave yourself all the funny lines. Nope. Like, we got to change this.
Yeah.
And I could have not spoken up then too, but you're going to have to speak up, especially if you're a woman too, because you're almost likely in every male dominated industry, even paleo, all the stuff so male dominated. I mean, I was speaking last year at an event. I was the only chick on stage speaking. I was like, what? So again, it's a little bit of a different thing for females sometimes, but I've had to come across it many, many times. I also co-wrote a couple of scripts with a male writing partner. I've had a couple male writing partners, but this one in particular, awesome dude, whatever. We go to the meeting with some producers, and this is why this really sucks sometimes when you're a female writer and you have a male writing partner. They defer to the male, thinking that the guy is like the genius behind the thing and is the head writer, when in fact I actually was. And that's a tough thing. I mean, and you're sitting there and they constantly are deferring. Even if there's women there, they're asking the guy. Because guys are the ones that are funny, or guys are the ones that, maybe he's the real writer and she's just kind of along for the. And, so I've had to deal with that in a few circumstances, which is why it brought me to that point with that conversation with Mark. But again, so glad I spoke up, because again, if the cover of that book were any different, I'd be regretting it to this day that I acquiesced to something I didn't want just because I was afraid he may or may not like the idea. He could have come back and said, hey, I hear you, but it's still important. Let's consider it further. But he didn't. He just said, oh no, I get it. Okay, moving on.
And he wouldn't have liked you more if you said the opposite, right? If you said, yeah, have that doctor come in and take all credit for this. Like, Mark wouldn't have liked you more, and the doctor wouldn't have either. They would have liked you less, because then the passive aggressiveness comes out later because everyone's unhappy because it's not the right setup. Because that's the other thing. He
probably liked me more because I did speak up in that moment, because
exactly,
I'm sure Mark totally appreciates that, right? He's like, oh yeah, okay. And he just I just needed to point out something he didn't consider, and that's okay. It's not like his job to be thinking about women and their careers and all this kind of stuff. And he really is a pro-woman guy, so it's not about misogyny there. But again, had I been like, I was a person who had never gotten a book published, here he is. I could have just been like, I'll do whatever he says, whatever he suggests. I just need to get this done. I'm just so grateful to even be here. That's such a weak position. It's such a weak position. I don't want people to take that position. We can do better. We
can. We have to. We have to do better, because the world will push you around, and it's, in many ways, it's hostile to certain characters and certain situations more than others. I would love to hear more about being a female writer, and in some of the circumstances you've been in, I would think could get extremely hairy and really, really toxic. But when you look out there on social media and a lot of the conversations that are going down between men and women and everything in between now, it's very toxic. I'm sure that you learned how to navigate that in a healthy way to some degree. So what advice would you offer to people out there who seem to be squabbling amongst the sexes?
Well, it depends on what environment you're in. I think it's tough, like for us women in the corporate world too, we have to be, feel like we have to be extra alpha. I remember at a time when I was in the corporate world, I didn't feel like I could look pretty because I had hired and managed like 100 men throughout California. So I didn't want to even be seen as pretty in any way. So I'd put my hair up in a bun. I wore fake glasses at the time, because if I'd interview people, I didn't want them to know how old I was. I wanted to look a little bit older because I was so young, but I also didn't want to look pretty. I didn't want to be any kind of thing that I wanted to be taken seriously. You know what I'm saying? And so that was 20 years ago. I don't care about that now. I would just show up as who I am wherever I am. But again, there are these things that we think about as women that a lot of guys don't. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So whether that's, I don't wear a dress to this, or a pretty low cut blouse, I put my hair up. Do I wear fake? Because we want to be taken seriously. We want to be taken as smart. You know what I mean? And so when it came down to sketch comedy and writing, I just had to take the helm. And I was one of the most prolific writers at the theater. So every guy or every girl wanted to write with me because they know it was going to end up being a great sketch. There was one time where a co-writer and I gave credit to a third writer who really didn't do anything on a sketch. And I tell you, to this day, it bothers me. No, I don't hold grudges. I'm just kidding. But to this day, I was like, I shouldn't have done that. Why did we do that? She didn't write anything in that. We gave her credit on that. Like, that was just so gratuitous. That didn't feel right either. And frankly, I wouldn't want credit on something that I wasn't a part of either. You know what I mean? So it's a little bit harder. So what do? Never work with a male writing partner? No, because one of my male writing partners, who's a fellow comedian, is so hysterical. We write amazing stuff together. But I did have to prep him before one of our meetings. And I said, hey, they're going to defer to you. And you need to make sure you are lobbing it back to me. Like, I literally had this conversation before this meeting with some producers after the other experience I told you about. And I said, you have to make sure that you are deferring to me, that you give me credit for ideas, all of this stuff, because it's just so one-sided going to be towards you.
Yeah.
Just the nature of this junk. It's terrible. I mean, look, there's a lot of women out there that still would defer to men. And it's just, again, it's our upbringing, it's culture and society. So we had a long talk about that, and he did a little bit, but I don't think as much as he should. And then afterwards I said, you need to do better next time, man. Did you not see that they were completely deferring you the whole time? You have to put it in my lap. You have to direct it towards me. You have to say things like, well, Elle came up with this really great idea on this section of the thing, which is whatever. You have to lob, wins my way. Or else we're not going to be seen as an equal partnership, and they're not going to see me as a talented person. And it's just, and so I eventually changed it, right? I was like, okay, let me have the conversation prior, because again, he's a guy, he doesn't see it this way. And even though the producing team was a male and female, they kept looking towards the dude, even though I was actually the ringleader of the entire thing to begin with, you know what I mean? And our jokes were evenly spread. He didn't come up with all the jokes and I just came up with the framework, or, you know what I mean? It's absolutely equal. If anything, I was probably more of the head writer. So again, I think that boosted a lot of my confidence, clearly, as being in a male dominated comedic environment where I ended up being one of the top performers at the theater for many years. And it continued to fuel my confidence and also my confidence in writing. And that's actually how I became a writer, was writing sketch comedy. And then I was like, you know what? Maybe I should blow this up. I could do like SNL sketches all day long, but they're 4 pages. What about a screenplay? What about a sitcom? And I was the one that approached people and was like, hey, you want to figure this out with me? You want to do this? And we sat down and we did it, but I led that charge.
Yeah.
So no one's going to ask you. Guys are always in sketch comedy going to need a chick to be in their sketch, right? But you need to make sure, like, do I like this role? Also, too, how am I being portrayed? Sometimes guys don't realize it. There's some things, by the way, in comedy that are just never funny and are kind of rules of the game. And this is such a side note tangent, but I'll just mention it. For example, you never joke about a woman's menstruation in any way. It's never funny. It's never, ever funny, ever. The other thing you don't do is, so it can be very funny in a sketch, like if you're watching SNL or you're watching something, it can be very funny when a man in the sketch is like, I'm blowing up and I'm crazy, right? But if a woman does it, oh boy, because she's just a nag, because our society has that social construction of women yelling, naggy. Sorry to say, that's a stereotype right on us so that's never funny in comedy. So those are things you learn over time. There's like, you just can't have women yelling. And is it fair? No, but it's the way that it is. And it's the way that it's perceived. So we don't do things like that. Yeah. It's
fascinating. And through comedy, you find where the edges are, kind of, right? You find what boxes we're in. It's like, I didn't even know I was in that box. But one thing I can say to your point, being a guy who's probably been in a lot of those situations, we are clueless to what a woman has gone through and is up against. And I'm sure I've offended people when I haven't tried to, just out of my own ignorance. But I think it's only fair that we extend that both ways, where we try to educate each other on what we're up against and where the walls are and what is funny and what isn't and why. Like, why would it be like that? That's obviously not fair or equal. It's kind of sexist, but like, I don't know. We're in this soup. What are we going to do about it? We got to figure this out. We have to work together,
Yeah. And one note on this, get back to sketch comedy again. Here's another thing that I intentionally did. So I was at a comedy theater for many years. I intentionally didn't date or sleep with anybody in the group.
Nice.
Intentionally. I was like, I am not doing this. Look, you have crushes, you have comedy crushes, like there's lots of people. It's like a restaurant, it's lots of incestuous. But guess what happens? Someone dates Joe, Joe breaks up with her, then the next girl, they're Joe. And now guess what? You're not seen as a professional person. No one wants you in your sketch, or somehow
Yep.
you're different. And then you got everyone talking about you in that way. I'd rather have, again, let the fantasies go by. Really, do I want to date this person? No. Okay, there were some love connections made in my theater and marriages that happened. So I'm not, poo-pooing all of that. What I'm saying is I made that conscious effort to be always seen as a professional environment, and always seen as someone. And to this day, people still call me, and I have a great reputation with everyone at that theater because I never ruined it, because I didn't get into some drama with the girls and the guys. And I saw how many women now hated each other and how many guys hated the women. And oh my God, it went on and on. And you know what? Those guys aren't going to call those chicks when they need someone to be in their scene that they're filming next week, but they're going to call me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They're going to call me. And because they respect me as an equal that way. And so I chose not to do that. And that was a conscious decision. And listen, I was there for many, many years. There were lots of people that I had little crushes on and was attracted to, but I was just like, really though, like I really thought it out. I was like, all right, but this probably is not going to be like, again, if I felt like any of them were going to be some true love connection, maybe I would have been open to it. But because I knew they wouldn't, and I was like, it's probably going to be temporary anyway, let's not go there. Let's just not go there. It's not worth the reputation. And so I think women have to think about that a lot too, and where guys don't necessarily have to think about it.
The confidence for a woman to say no in a situation like that, right? Yeah, that's a big one. You're a target in a lot of ways, right? Like my wife, Allison, used to work at video game companies, and she was on an all-girl video gaming team and toured all around. And like what you're subjected to is so outrageous. But there's so much strength, even though actually you and Allison in a lot of ways are kind of built similar in this world. You show up and you're not particularly tall, and you're slender and fair skin, fair hair, and all this. So a lot of people have assumptions that they could probably steamroll you or just talk all over you or dominate you in some way. But as you were talking about before, I wanted to bring this up too. Like the tone of the voice that you used. I remember when I think it was at Mark Sisson's, one of the parties back in the day, you came up to me and it was just like, you were so confident right away. And it was just like, we were in mid conversation right away. And that doesn't often happen. You know what I mean? But that's what it takes to have a real conversation and to be there with a real person and to not talk about the weather, but to like get right into it. And unfortunately,
and I just want to say I think you're awesome, but your wife's awesome.
She's way cooler than I am.
She's
way cooler.
I might be team Allison on this one. If I had to choose. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, dude, watching her shoot guys down is one of my favorite pastimes.
I love it. Yeah, she's cool.
But what you were saying about the tone of voice that you use, like this comes up so often with our dog who doesn't always listen. She's a 8-year-old yellow lab who just came that way, right? And just nuts and whatever. So if I'm just like, no, Bailey, don't stop doing that. She's never gonna, that's not gonna, but if I'm like, no, she's like, everything stops, right? The camera comes in and the spotlight's on her and she gets it. And men are like dogs in that way is what I'm trying to say.
Well, we have this animal primal nature. So sometimes, again, you have to exude your confidence as dominance through voice, tone, and eye contact, whatever it is.
Even if you're small, especially if you're small.
I'm 5'2", man. Right. I'm like, and what's funny is when people meet me in person, they are so shocked that I'm not like 6 feet tall. They're like, I thought you were so much taller. Yeah. Probably because of my personality, probably because of like my first book cover where I'm standing there and it looks kind of like Amazon-y. I get that, but they always think I'm so much taller. In fact, sometimes I wear like really like these kind of Hawaii slippers that are like the heels like this thick. It makes me like 3 inches taller because sometimes I actually feel just a little bit more comfortable being a few inches taller. But yeah, being a short, small, pretty woman and, people are maybe going to discount you or whatever it is, or you might feel you have to speak up more. But here's the thing. If you're at work, you're going to be in a boardroom with a bunch of dudes. Who's going to get their idea? You have to learn to interject and speak up. You have to learn to command the room. Sometimes that takes a certain tone of voice. It doesn't have to be nasty. It just has to be commanding,
Just for a second.
Just for a second, just to get in there. And that takes confidence. You know what I mean? That takes the ability to speak up. No one really wants to work with people who are insecure and not confident. You don't trust it. And so, especially in any career, you're going to need it. And frankly, you're going to need it extra if you're an artist. So creative people get downered more than anyone in this world, whether you're a musician or actor or whatever. The world is like kind of going, good luck with that. Nice try. Have fun. And so you're going to get downered. You're going to get discounted. And it's even more important if you're in a creative profession that you gain confidence and self-esteem so that you can move forward, because you're going to get hit from everywhere, especially if you're in a creative environment. No, if you're like, no, you're going to be a lawyer. Well, you know all the benchmarks to get there. You know to do this, you make partner. There are no benchmarks in any creative profession. It is an absolute, kind of crapshoot of who knows where I go. NBC just doesn't put out, radio stations don't just put out ads like, hey, we're looking for a radio show host. Like that just doesn't happen. So you got to go make your own way. If you're an artist at home and you've got great paintings, no one's going to come to your door. You have to learn how to sell them. You have to put yourself out there. That is self-promotion. And so you can simmer in a false humility of like, well, I don't want to, and some people were taught this, like, don't tell people your abilities, don't brag, but it's not bragging. How are you going to get the job when the person in the interview says, what are your strongest abilities? Really? Is it bragging or is it touting your strengths? You have to be able to firmly say those in a way that they're going to believe you. Listen, this is why con men, this is why it works. Now that's false confidence. They usually get found out. And if they don't, that's just inner turmoil that, will jack them up for life anyway. So they essentially are not living a great life, but they're instilling a false sense of confidence in people who trust them. And so they get their money or whatever the con is. That's confidence, man. So that's a misuse of confidence, of course. And I wouldn't suggest that anyone do that. Bullying is a misuse of confidence as well. And again, this is where confident people really need to refine it. Because you know what, listen, a lot of highly confident people were bullies back in the day. It's just true. And so that can kind of carry over into adulthood unless they are refining themselves in these ways and learn to. Confident people encourage other people to succeed. We don't compete. So this is confident people are friendly. They're encouraging others to be confident. If you're confident and you're out there, you've got to pep talk people, man. Pick people off the ground, encourage them. I mean, that's the best gift you can give back is that.
Yeah. And it's education for everyone around you, the bullies, the people who aren't speaking up, you being a female comic and speaking at events that are male dominated, the females in the audience are looking to you as that example, when it's so amazing when you see someone just like shatter that ceiling. Like recently in guitar, there have been a lot of female shredders, just amazingly technical and talented. And, I saw some talented men growing up playing guitar, but I don't really remember watching as a kid female shredding guitars. Not that shredding guitar even matters, but now like little young females are rocking the guitar, like as little kids, starting there with no glass ceiling, not that glass ceiling, I mean. And that's what we all need. We need people like you to stick out. We need people like you to stick out and do it. And you're going to be the early adopters, especially as women, right? But that's what it takes. And you're such a great example.
Well, it's getting so much better too. And I love like growing up, the Go-Go's, they were like the only example of like all chick, right? You know what I mean? That was so empowering, right? I remember being like, I dressed up for them as Halloween. And I wanted to be the drummer, because that was the only reflection that I saw. Right. And then until later, and now like it's getting so much better. I don't know if you know the band, they're mostly electronic music, Khruangbin. They're really awesome. There's a female bassist and her name's Laura Lee. She's such a badass. And it's so cool to see her just jamming this bass in this incredible band. And there's so much more of that nowadays, thank God. And thank God there's more female comics and women are seeing as funny. Thank God for the Kristen Wiggs of the world. Great. It's all getting better, but it's still there. And I remember people being shocked sometimes being like, oh my God, you're so funny or whatever. And I'd be like, that's not a shocking thing to say to a guy, but they're like saying it like, I'm so surprised. And it's like, you know, and nowadays it's better. It's way better. The Melissa McCarthy's of the world, all that stuff, like, that makes my day because women are empowering within comedy. They're great comedy writers and it's getting better and better, but still it's there and people are still going to defer to the men. So yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be uphill, but if we can communicate and be good to each other, and we'll get through this and make it better. Al, we're almost out of time, but make sure to tell folks where they can find your book and what you're working on next as well.
Yeah, so you can find my book on Amazon. You can just type in Confident as F-U-C-K. And you can also go to lruss.com. If anybody, since my first book is about thyroid health, if anyone's suffering with thyroid issues, there's a free thyroid guide on my website. Just click it, gives you all the tests you need to get, how to get on the right path. So you don't even have to buy my book to get on the right path there. I'm working on a new podcast, actually. I'm still going to do Primal Blueprint, of course, for, till the day is done, but I'm going to do my own podcast with the co-host as a woman, focusing on, empowerment, not just for women, but for everybody, and confidence and all the stuff we love to talk about. And yeah, hopefully eventually I'll come out with an audiobook and everything else, and Paleo FX, doing a talk there on my book this year. So lots of good stuff. Lots of fun.
Beautiful. Well, Elle, your work is very much appreciated and needed right now. We could all use a little bit less shame and insecurity and more confidence and more sticking up for ourselves. So thank you so much for coming on the show. You're welcome anytime.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey folks, this is Abel James, New York Times bestselling author and host of the Fat Burning Man Show. And I've got a quick video here today about our brand spanking new product from our family company, Wild Superfoods. This one is called Collagen Cocoa, and we have been working on this for years. We're so excited because it tastes so good. So what it is, it's grass-fed bone broth protein. It's a protein concentrate that comes from bone broth from these cows that were raised as nature intended, eating grass on pasture. And it's combined with a high quality source of chocolate and cocoa powder and a little bit of stevia as a sweetener. So it actually tastes quite similar to cocoa powder combined with a little bit of a sweetener. It's got a wonderful taste, but we also have been using it. Allison is, as you probably know, if you're a longtime listener or follower, she's wonderful in the kitchen and comes up with the most dastardly and delicious things. So you can actually use collagen cocoa as a replacement for, as a swap for chocolate powder or cocoa powder in some of our recipes and some of our cookbooks and that sort of thing. So we've already made cookies, power cookies, brownies, and other things like that. But also collagen cocoa, you can just mix it in water. You can throw it in your favorite smoothie if you like chocolate, especially. It's a wonderful flavor. And then one of the other things that I do as a little kind of like health nut sundae is what I refer to it as, is I take Greek yogurt, usually full fat, grass-fed as well, and throw a scoop or two of this collagen cocoa in there with some nuts, maybe some fresh fruit, and oh my goodness, is that a wonderful treat. It's so delicious, and it gives it a really wonderful consistency, more like a mousse or like a pudding of some kind. So you can really have a lot of fun with this, or you can just use it, after your workout as a convenient way to get concentrated protein. And so in one serving, you're getting 21 grams of high quality animal source protein, which is more easily absorbed than a lot of the alternative protein sources out there that are plant-based and more highly processed. So we are very excited about collagen cocoa. When you get this, it's a giant, heavy, full thing of powder. So look forward to many delicious meals and treats as well. If you're interested in Wild Superfoods, you can check all this out at wildsuperfoods.com. And once again, this is Collagen Cocoa. So I'm Abel James signing off. Thanks for getting in touch. Thanks for your support. And I can't wait to hear how you like Collagen Cocoa. All right, we'll be in touch. Well, hey there, listener. This is Abel one more time, and I just want to say thank you for listening to this episode of the Fat Burning Man Show. If you liked it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button wherever you might be listening to or watching this show right now. And if you have a second, please leave me a quick review for the Fat Burning Man Show. I read every single one of them, and every time you leave a review, it gives us a little boost in the rankings, and that helps other people find this show. And if you can think of someone else who might enjoy and benefit from this free show, please take a second to share it with a friend or a family member. And if they're like, what is this Fat Burning Man thing? That's a really silly name. You could be like, you're right, but here's the deal. We've recorded over 250 episodes of the Fat Burning Man Show with thought leaders in health from all over the world. And so far, we've won 4 awards, hitting #1 in health in more than 8 countries internationally. We have more than 30 million downloads already, but we're just getting started. I can't believe any of this, by the way, and couldn't do any of this without you. So thanks once again. But here's some more good news. You can download and listen to every single episode of the Fat Burning Man Show for free with 0 outside advertisements, no outside sponsors, and no corporate overlords. All you have to do is type in fatburningman.com. We'll give you a second here just to type it in, fatburningman.com. And you'll get all the show notes, transcripts, and video and audio versions for all the past episodes of the Fat Burning Man Show for free. Better yet, enter your email at fatburningman.com, sign up for my newsletter, and I'll even send you a quick start guide so you can take your health into your own hands right now, along with a few of our ridiculously tasty recipes as a special thanks for signing up. Once again, just go to fatburningman.com right now, enter your best email to get your free goodies with a bonus surprise straight to your inbox. This is Abel James signing off. Thank you so much for listening once again, and have a great week.